Fake news is a very broad and catchy term that has been really used now very widely all over the world. And I think on many aspects, it just now became a kind of communication tool. It's a slogan, not so much something describing a reality. But when we try to look at what really is understood by fake news, I see three main realities that should be kind of dissociated from the term fake news. The first one is what we usually call disinformation, which means a really organized, deliberate campaign of spreading false information with a specific target at harming some opposition or people with whom one disagrees. So that's one aspect. The other one is what we call misinformation, which can be either interpreted as a kind of honest mistake, so people or institutions spreading false information without realizing that they are false. But some scholars also interpret misinformation as a deliberate spreading of a false information. So people know that the information is a false one, but it's not targeting any group, so there is no harm. So that's usually how fake news are understood, either as a kind of misinformation or disinformation. But my interpretation, my point is that we should also bring into the discussion the question of interpretation, right? Because very rarely a news is only a purely descriptive fact that can be either true or false. Very often a news is an interpretation of a fact. And in that case, it's very sometimes difficult to dissociate if the news is kind of true or fake, because it can be just a question of interpretation or the location of the interpreter on the different cultural context in which it can be interpreted. And I think that's what makes this allegation of fake news sometimes a very difficult term to use for scholars. I think the question of fake news is really now a result of the changing of the media environment and the way the media ecosystems have been evolving with the rise of social media these last 10, 15 years. And so in a sense, fake news is just representing the tip of the iceberg, but the real question is the change of the media ecosystem and what it represents for our societies. And so the fact that now news are both kind of immediate, we have a continuous flow of them, and they are coming from all the different sides. So everybody is both a consumer and potentially a creator of news. This is really a dramatic change, shifting of meaning of what media, the place of media in our society, and therefore it's really contributing to the general distrust and growing distrust that we see all in different Western part of different societies in the West, in the US, in Europe, but also in other countries, a general distrust toward classic institutions, toward the justice system, toward the parliamentary system, toward politicians, and toward classic media. And I think that's really becoming the sign of a kind of systemic crisis, where we see citizens losing trust in an institution and at the same time not being able to replace classic institution, but something else that they would be able to trust, because just the interaction through social media is creating more polarization than it is creating trust. And I think we see that phenomenon all over the world, but of course it's impacting more Western society, because the so-called Western liberal order, the traditional democratic system, is based on trust on institution. When this trust on institution is decreasing, then it will be very difficult for the so-called liberal order to reinvent a way of creating trust and trying to integrate this social media and the change in the media ecosystem globally into the building of a new society. So I think what we see now is really a very interesting and fascinating, even if it's also creating a lot of concern, a deep structural changes on the way societies build connection and interaction between citizens, and on the way we want media and information to be part of our life. And probably in the years to come, there will be growing deep discussion about the role of social media, about all the big Silicon Valley firms and their role in creating or destroying the citizenry that we have been used to have in the West. And so we are kind of opening probably a new phase of discussion and transformation of societies and their relationship to institution and to the media.